Good morning, everyone. We are on our third week of our holiday traditions that are centered around light. Today we are talking about the holiday Hanukkah, and our story is called Grandma's Latkes, and this is written by Malka Drucker. No matter how Molly tried, she could never beat Grandma at grating potatoes. One potato after another flew from Grandma's hands into a mountain of slippery white slivers. "How did you learn to make latkes?" Molly asked, and she rested her tired arms but didn't complain. She was finally old enough to be picked as Grandma's helper. They had lots of latkes to make for Hanukkah party. From my grandmother. Before Hanukkah, she would save her pennies. She was very poor, to buy the potatoes, eggs, onions, and oil. All of us. You remember, I had 5 brothers and sisters. We would be in the kitchen when she fried the latkes. Look at my recipe. It's in her handwriting. She used 3 potatoes, but we'll use 6 potatoes because we have so many people. Grandma put the potatoes in a bowl and took out the eggs, onions, salt, and pepper. Why do we eat latkes during Hanukkah? Is it because Jews ate them a long time ago? Molly asked. No, it's because it reminds us of the oil. Take out the oil, Molly, while we're talking. And as Molly went to the pantry, Grandma began to grate the onions, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "It's just the onions," she told Molly, smiling. Molly asked, "How do you know how many onions to use?" "Well, look, my grandma wrote, use 1 onion for 3 potatoes. Do you know the story about Hanukkah?" "Not really." "Well, why don't you break the eggs into this bowl and I'll tell it to you. A long time ago, Jews did eat potatoes, but they also ate lots of other vegetables and fruits because they were farmers in Israel. They lived plain, simple lives, and they were happy raising families and celebrating the holidays. Didn't they have Hanukkah yet?" That's right. The trouble began when Antiochus, the Syrian king, became the ruler of Israel and demanded that everyone pray to Greek gods. No other religion was allowed. "Oh, that would be like everyone having to celebrate Christmas," Molly said. "No more Hanukkah and latkes." "I don't like latkes." She broke the first egg into the bowl. "Many people didn't," Grandma answered. "Uh-oh, Grandma, part of the eggshell fell into the eggs and I can't get it out. It keeps jumping away from me." Molly's fingers dipped with the sticky whites. No matter what she tried, she couldn't get hold of the shell. "Watch this," Grandma said, and she dipped another piece of eggshell into the bowl, and out came the piece that Molly had dropped. "Let me try that," Molly said, and Grandma threw in another bit of shell. And like Grandma, Molly easily fished out the eggshell with a piece in her hand. "I like that trick." "Good," Grandma smiled. "Now, mix the potatoes, onions, and eggs together, Molly." Grandma poured the oil into the big frying pan and turned on the stove. "So, did the Jewish people get mad at Antiochus?" Molly continued. Oh, yes, eventually. One day he sent a soldier to Mattathias, a wise old man who lived near Jerusalem. The soldier said, Antiochus will make you rich and powerful if you help him. Just kill this pig and eat a little of it. Then all the Jews will follow your example. You know, Molly, in those days no Jews ate the meat from the pig. But Mattathias screamed at the soldier, Go away! Don't tell me what to eat or who to believe in. And suddenly, a little grubby man who had been listening stepped forward. I'll eat the meat, he whispered. And this made Mattathias very angry. He couldn't understand how someone would throw away his religion so easily. So he shouted, All who believe in God, follow me. Well, Molly stopped stirring the mixture and stared at Grandma. So, did they? She asked. Well, some did, Grandma answered. She sprinkled some salt and pepper into the bowl and said, Now we're ready to fry the latkes. First, we take a tablespoon of the mixture and drop the spoonful into the hot, bubbly oil. Grandma made 8 circles in the frying pan, and they sizzled and turned brown, and Molly's mouth began to water. Grandma picked her up to watch the latkes fry. Don't put your face too close. My grandmother would say, Stand back! The oil jumps out! You'll get burned! But we wouldn't go far because we couldn't wait to eat her crispy hot latkes. When the oil had stopped spitting, Grandma went on with the story. Mattathias had 5 sons. The oldest was Judah Maccabee. Judah and his brothers led a small army against Antiochus and his huge army of thousands of soldiers. And guess what, Molly? A miracle happened. The Maccabees won. How could the Maccabees win? Molly asked. Well, no one knows for sure how a miracle happens. It's a mystery. But Judah Maccabee knew his little country very well and surprised them by hiding in the hills, and they knew they had to win. If they didn't, the Jewish people would be destroyed. But mostly they felt that they had the Spirit of God inside them, and that gave them strength. The Maccabees returned to their big, beautiful temple in Jerusalem, ready to celebrate. Instead, they cried. The temple was filthy with the dirt, and ashes covered everything. All of the books, the Torahs, and the candlesticks were gone. And worst of all, when Judah tried to light a menorah, there was only a drop of oil. That was only enough for maybe one day. But when the oil was poured into the lamp, it burned for a second day, and a third, and in all it burned 8 days. How did that happen? Asked Molly. It was another miracle, just like the Maccabees beating Antiochus, and just like you, Molly, you are my miracle. And Grandma wrapped the latke in a paper towel and handed it to Molly. And Molly bit into that hot, crisp pancake and sighed with pleasure. Grandma brought a big plate covered with the paper towels over to the frying pan. So that's why on Hanukkah we fry the latkes in lots of oil and eat them. You bet. Help me put the latkes on the plate. And she lifted them out of the pan with a spatula and drained them on the paper towel. When they were finally ready, Molly and Grandma carried in the heavy platter of golden pancakes to the rest of the family, who were waiting at the table. Mmm, delicious, Grandpa said as he smeared sour cream over his latke. Molly's mother said, I heard you and Grandmother talking the whole time you were cooking. What was going on? And Molly answered, I learned lots of things. Cooking secrets. Like what? How to fish an eggshell out of a bowl of eggs, Molly said. And the next time we cook, I'll show you. Ah, good. What else did you learn? Molly's mother asked. Molly swallowed a bit of applesauce-covered latke and said, I learned a lot about how Jacob Maccabee beat Antiochus even though Antiochus was much stronger, and how a tiny drop of oil lasted for 8 days. Those were miracles, and Hanukkah is about miracles. She thought for a moment. Grandma, do we light candles for 8 nights because the light lasted 8 days? Grandma laughed and said, exactly. And now you know enough to teach your own grandchildren. And she gave Molly a kiss. And then the very last page is the recipe for Grandma's latkes, and I've included that in your kit. Try it out with your mom. Thanks.